I didn't flinch. I didn't reach for my sister's hand. I just sat there with my back straight and my hands folded in my lap, watching the notary arrange papers on the conference table like he was setting up for a board meeting rather than the dismantling of my life. My brother sat across from me. He had our father's jaw and our mother's eyes, and right now both were aimed at me with the particular confidence of someone who believes the outcome has already been decided. His wife sat beside him, her fingers wrapped around a coffee cup she'd brought from outside, like she couldn't be bothered to use the firm's. She hadn't looked at me once since I walked in. My father had been dead for 19 days. I know that number exactly because I had counted each one of them alone, in the house I grew up in, while my brother and his wife stayed at a hotel 40 minutes away and called it giving me space. I had sorted through my father's medicine. I had met with the funeral home. I had chosen the flowers and written the obituary, and stood at the podium and spoken for 7 minutes about a man who had taught me how to change a tire and how to say I'm sorry and how to mean it. My brother gave a toast at the reception. It was 4 sentences long. And now we were here, in the offices of Hartwell and Pierce, waiting for the reading of a will that my brother had told me twice was straightforward. "We appreciate everyone coming in," the attorney said. His name was Mr. Aldridge, and he had the practiced neutrality of a man who had watched too many families fracture across this exact table. Before we begin, I want to note for the record that all parties named in the estate have been properly notified and are present. My brother nodded like he was approving a report. I looked at the empty chair beside me, the one my father used to sit in during his own appointments, the one that now held nothing but the particular weight of absence. "Dad," I said, inside my head, not out loud, "I hope you knew what you were doing." My father's name was Gerald Harmon. He had worked as a civil engineer for 31 years, retired at 64, and spent the following decade doing exactly what he wanted, which mostly involved woodworking in the garage and entering chili competitions at the county fair. He won twice. He displayed both ribbons on the refrigerator with the same magnets that had held my report cards when I was 9. He had 2 children. My brother Daniel, who was 43 and lived in Phoenix and worked in commercial real estate and called on birthdays and sometimes on Father's Day if the time zones cooperated. And me, I was 38. I had moved back to Claremont 6 years ago when my father's first health scare turned out to be serious, and I had never moved away again. I want to be careful here because I know how that sounds. I know how a daughter who moves home to care for an aging parent can be made to look when there is money involved. I had heard the word already, undue influence. My brother had said it on the phone 3 weeks before my father died, when he found out that my father had updated his estate plan. "I'm not accusing you of anything," he'd said, in the voice people use when they are absolutely accusing you of something. "Good," I'd said, because there's nothing to accuse me of. I had not told him what was in the updated plan. I hadn't known myself. My father had updated it with a different attorney, one he'd hired on his own, one he'd driven himself to see on a Tuesday afternoon while I was at work. He had told me only that he had taken care of things and that I should trust the process, which was the kind of thing he said when he wanted to end a conversation. I had trusted it, right up until the moment my brother slid a document across the table at me 2 days before the official reading and told me to review it. "This is the will," he said. I looked at it. My name appeared twice, once in a standard clause about personal property, and once in a line that allocated me 15% of the liquid assets after the house was sold. Daniel received the remaining 85% and was named sole executor. "There must be a mistake," I said. "There isn't," he said. And the way he said it flat, practiced, already prepared for exactly that response told me that he had known for longer than 2 days. I didn't sleep the night before the official reading. I sat at my father's kitchen table, the one he had built himself from reclaimed oak, and I went through every conversation we'd had in the last 2 years, every moment I might have misread. Every time he'd seemed tired or confused or distant, and I had told myself it was just age, just grief after my mother passed, just the particular quiet of a man winding down. I thought about the Tuesday he'd gone to the attorney's office alone. I thought about how he'd come home and made himself a grilled cheese sandwich and watched the news and gone to bed, and I had not thought to ask him a single question. I thought about the box. 3 months before he died, my father had handed me a box. Cardboard, the size of a shoebox, sealed with brown packing tape. "Keep this somewhere safe," he'd said. "Not here, somewhere else." "What is it?" I'd asked. "Insurance," he'd said. And then he'd gone back to the garage. I had put it in the storage unit I rented on Meridian Avenue, on the shelf behind the holiday decorations, and I had not thought about it again until I was sitting at that kitchen table at 2 in the morning, staring at a document that said my father had left me 15% of a life I had given 6 years to help him live. I drove to the storage unit at 3 a.m. I sat in the car for 10 minutes. Then I went inside and found the box and opened it. There was a USB drive. There was a sealed envelope with my name on it in my father's handwriting. And there was a folded piece of paper with a name, a phone number, and 2 words, call her. The name was Margaret Osei. I didn't call that night. I drove home, put the box in my car, and waited until 7 a.m. because some part of me still believed in reasonable hours even when everything else was unreasonable. Then I dialed the number. She picked up on the second ring. Miss Harmon, she said, before I had introduced myself. I've been expecting your call. Your father told me it might be a few weeks. Are you all right? I almost said yes, out of habit. Instead, I said no. I don't think I am. Good, she said. That means you're paying attention. Can you come to my office this afternoon? Margaret Osei was not what I had pictured. I had pictured someone soft, someone grandmotherly, someone who would make tea and speak carefully. Instead, I found a woman in her late 50s in a charcoal suit, seated behind a desk that held nothing but a laptop, a legal pad, and a single photograph turned face down. She had close-cropped gray hair and reading glasses pushed up on her forehead, and the unhurried manner of someone who had spent 30 years not being rushed. Sit down, she said. I sat. Your father retained me 8 months ago, she said. He came alone. He was clear, he was coherent, and he was deliberate. He told me that he had reason to believe his original estate plan had been interfered with and that he wanted to correct it. I felt something shift in my chest. Interfered with how? He showed me emails, she said. Between your brother and the attorney who drafted the original updated will a Mr. Forsyth, who your father had been referred to by your brother. The emails discussed specific asset allocations before your father had communicated any preferences. They discussed how to frame certain language in a way that would be difficult to contest. Your brother's wife was copied on several of them. The coffee cup, the 40-minute hotel, the 4-sentence toast. Your father was not confused, Margaret said. He was worried that he would appear confused if he tried to contest it himself, and that your brother would use that against him. So he came to me, and he corrected the record. Properly, with full documentation, witnessed by 2 people who had no connection to your family, notarized and stored in a place your brother would not know to look. The actual will, I said slowly. The actual will, she said, which supersedes the document your brother showed you, because it was executed 4 months after it and complies fully with the requirements of this state. She opened a folder and slid a document across to me. Your father left you the house and 60% of the liquid assets. He left your brother 40% with a letter of explanation that I am required to deliver at the reading. I looked at the document. My father's signature was at the bottom, slightly unsteady the way it had been in his last year, but unmistakably his. Below it were 2 witnesses and a notary seal. He also left a recording, Margaret said. Video. Himself, on camera, explaining his reasoning in his own words. Approximately 40 minutes long. He was very thorough. I pressed my hand flat on the table to keep it from shaking. He knew, I said. It wasn't a question. He knew exactly what was happening, she said. He just needed time to document it properly so that it couldn't be undone. She paused. He also wanted me to tell you something. What? He said, and I'm quoting directly, because he made me write it down. Tell her I saw everything. Tell her I never once doubted her. Tell her the chili ribbons go to her because she's the only one who ever ate the chili. I laughed. It came out strange, broken in the middle, and I pressed my hand to my mouth, and Margaret Osei looked at me with the exact right amount of patience while I got myself together. Okay, I finally said. What do I need to do? Come to the reading tomorrow, she said. Bring the box. I'll do the rest. I did not tell my brother that I had found anything. I did not tell him about Margaret or the box or the recording. I drove home. I made dinner. I went to sleep at 10 o'clock, and I woke up at 6, and I put on the gray blazer my father had always said made me look like I meant business, and I drove to Hartwell and Pierce. My brother was already in the parking lot when I arrived. He was on his phone, laughing at something, and his wife was touching up her lipstick in the passenger mirror. They did not see me park. I watched them for a moment, the ease of them, the certainty, and then I got out of my car and walked inside. I had been seated for 3 minutes when the door opened. Margaret Osei walked in wearing a different charcoal suit than yesterday's, this one with a pale blue blouse underneath, and she was carrying a leather briefcase and a sealed envelope, and she moved through that conference room like she had reserved her seat a long time ago. She set her briefcase on the table, nodded to Mr. Aldridge, and sat down beside me without a word. My brother looked up. "Who is this?" he said. "My attorney," I said. He looked at his wife. She looked at him. Something passed between them, a recalibration, a rapid internal adjustment, and then he arranged his face back into something neutral and turned to Mr. Aldridge. "Can we begin?" he said. "We can," Mr. Aldridge said. He looked briefly at Margaret, who gave a small nod. "However, I need to note for the record that this office has received, as of yesterday afternoon, a notarized superseding estate document and accompanying materials which must be entered into the record before we proceed. This was delivered by Miss Osei on behalf of the estate of Gerald Harmon." My brother said, "What?" It was the first time I had heard his voice go uncertain in 38 years. Mr. Aldridge handled it the way experienced attorneys handle things they have prepared for methodically, without drama, with the particular calm of someone who knows that calm is the most powerful thing in the room right now. He explained the superseding will. He explained what superseding meant. He explained the timeline, the notarization, the witnesses, the legal requirements satisfied. My brother's attorney, a man named Pierce, who had been sitting silently in the corner until this moment, leaned forward and said, "We'll need time to review this." "Of course," Margaret said pleasantly. "We expected that. You'll also want to review this." She opened her briefcase and removed a printed document, maybe 30 pages, and slid it across the table. "That is a summary of the email correspondence between your client, his wife, and the attorney who drafted the previous document, beginning 14 months ago. The full archive has already been submitted to the State Bar Association." Pierce looked at the document. He did not pick it up. "And this," Margaret continued, removing a USB drive from the briefcase and setting it on the table with a small, precise click, "is a recording of Gerald Harmon, dated 8 months ago, describing in his own words the nature of what occurred, his mental state, his intentions, and his reasons for the updated estate plan. It runs approximately 40 minutes. You're welcome to view it now, or we can reconvene." The room was completely quiet. My brother was looking at the USB drive. I watched something move through his face, not guilt exactly, but the particular expression of a person who has been operating under the assumption that a locked door has no key, and has just heard the key in the lock. "This is not what Dad wanted," he said. His voice had changed. It was flatter, softer, the aggression compressed into something that was trying to sound like grief. He was not well. He was confused in his last months. She was there influencing every decision. "Mr. Harmon," Margaret said. She said it calmly, without volume, without sharpness, but she said it once and he stopped. "Your father was evaluated by 2 independent physicians as part of the process of drafting the superseding document. Both assessments confirmed full cognitive capacity. Both are included in the supplementary materials." She tilted her head slightly. "Your father anticipated this argument. He prepared for it quite carefully. He prepared because she made him... He prepared," Margaret said, "because he knew his son." The silence that followed was different from the previous one. This one had weight. My brother's wife set down her coffee cup. I looked at my brother across the table. He looked older suddenly, or maybe I was just seeing him more clearly than I had in a long time. He was looking at the USB drive, and I could see he was calculating, not grieving, not doubting, calculating running scenarios, assessing probabilities, looking for the angle that still existed. I thought about my father sitting in a stranger's office 8 months ago, alone, outlining a plan to protect something he had spent his life building. I thought about him writing my name on an envelope. I thought about the chili ribbons on the refrigerator, still there when I'd left the house this morning. "He knew exactly what he was doing," I said. I hadn't planned to say it. It came out quietly, almost to myself, but everyone in the room heard it. My brother looked at me. For just a moment, under everything else, I saw something that might have been shame. Then it was gone. The meeting adjourned and reconvened twice over the next 2 hours. My brother's attorney asked for copies of everything and was given them. There were phone calls made in the hallway, hushed and clipped, that I could hear fragments of through the conference room's glass wall. At one point, my brother came back in alone, without his attorney, and he sat down across from me and said, "We should talk about this privately." "We're talking privately right now?" I said. "I mean without her," he said, gesturing toward Margaret. "No," I said. He sat back. He looked at his hands. "I just want you to know that I wasn't trying to cut you out entirely. 15% is not nothing. And you got 6 years of living there rent-free, Sarah. You got 6 years of..." "I paid rent," I said. "Dad charged me $800 a month. It's in his financial records." He hadn't known that. I watched him not know it. "He didn't tell me that," he said. "He didn't tell you a lot of things," I said. We looked at each other across the table. We had grown up in the same house. eaten at the same kitchen table my father built, learned to drive in the same parking lot behind the grocery store on Tanner Road. We had sat in the same pew at our mother's funeral and held opposite ends of the same casket at our father's. There was a version of this day I had imagined where that history meant something, where it acted as a floor below which certain things couldn't fall. I would have been fair to you, I said, if it had gone the other way. I want you to know that. He didn't say anything. I gathered my things and stood up. The superseding will was entered into the probate record 11 days later. There was no contest filed. My brother's attorney sent a letter citing the strength of the documentation and the video statement and recommending against litigation. I don't know what my brother said when he got that advice. I don't know what he and his wife said to each other in that hotel 40 minutes away, or on the plane back to Phoenix, or in the weeks after. I know what I did. I went home to the house on Ellery Street, the house my father had owned for 27 years, and I walked into the garage, and I stood among the tools hung on pegboard, and the sawdust that still smelled faintly of cedar, and I said, out loud, to no one, okay, Dad, I see you. The chili ribbons are still on the refrigerator. I haven't moved them. Margaret Osei sent me a card 2 weeks after everything concluded. It was a plain white card, no printed sentiment, just a handwritten line in precise, even script. Your father said to tell you he was proud of how you handled the quiet parts. I told him I would. I have it on the kitchen table now. On the table he built from reclaimed oak. In the house he left to someone he trusted. In the life I had not known he was watching over so carefully all along. I think about the Tuesday he drove himself to her office. I think about him walking in alone, sitting down, and starting to explain. I think about him being precise and clear and careful, knowing he did not have unlimited time, knowing he needed to get it right. He got it right. I didn't flinch. I didn't reach for anyone's hand. I just sat there and let him keep the promise he'd made without words, the way good fathers do quietly, completely, and just in time.